Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the conference. I request everyone to please keep their cameras on.
รัตยาครับ
นี่เป็นภาษาอังกฤษแล้วใช่ไหม
เดี๋ยวผมดูก่อนดูเสียงโอเค
Welcome, Mohammed. I request everyone to please keep their cameras on. Azila Adnan, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi,
very
ma'am.
clear. Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Welcome to the conference. Mohammed sir, can you hear me? Okay, he might be facing some glitches with the mic. Welcome, Ratya ma'am. How are you? Ratya ma'am, am I audible? Okay, so we quickly will take the introduction. Azila ma'am will just start with you. So can you just introduce about yourself to us? Azila ma'am?
Okay, yes.
Yeah. You have to introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay. Good day, everyone. My name is Azila Adnan, and I am from University Malaysia, Terengganu, Malaysia. And specifically, servicing at the Faculty of Science and Marine Environment. And my expertise is in bioprocess technology, which is more specific to fermentation. And currently, I'm doing a research on bacterial cellulose and also bioplastic.
All
So
right,
this
thank
is here. Yep.
Thank you so much, Azila ma'am, for the lovely introduction. Mohammed sir, can you hear us? Ratya ma'am, can you hear us? Welcome, ma'am. How are you?
Oh, 6-year-old.
Ma'am, you need to unmute yourself.
I'm Ratya Santisthapon. I'm head nurse operating room in Loi, Thailand.
All right. Okay, welcome to the conference. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Okay, now we'll just begin with the conference. Welcome to the Eurasia Research Online Live International Conference. Today, we have these many participants who would be participating in our conference. Today, we have presentation and participants from 8 countries around the world. Countries are Poland, South Africa, Thailand, Singapore, Iran, Malaysia, South Korea, India. We are broadcasting this conference on Facebook Live on multiple pages of Eurasia Research. The links for the live session are shared in the chat box. Please allow me a moment to introduce Eurasia Research to you in a nutshell. With over more than 1 million satisfied members and associates spread across the globe, Eurasia Research is a scholarly association who have been working for nearly a decade. Eurasia Research has organized several successful international conferences, workshops, and training program at various reputed institutions and grant venues. Eurasia Research has been tirelessly working for research world and have not stopped their endeavors even during the COVID era, have presented research community with online platform which was safe and convenient method to continue the passion. We are an international community of researchers, practitioners, students, and educationists who aim to bring together worldwide researchers and professionals, encourage intellectual development, and to create opportunities for networking and collaboration. These objectives are achieved through academic networking, meetings, conferences, workshops, project, research publication, academic awards, and scholarship. We provide scholarship to deserving candidates to promote student and research scholar to participate in international conference. Young researcher scholarship is provided in the full registration fee waiver. We have vast experience of publishing papers for more than 7 years. Our associated journals publish original papers, review paper, conceptual framework, analytical and simulation models, case studies, empirical research, technical notes, and book reviews. We cater to more than 30 plus themes in the area of teaching and education and have registered ISSN and have following re-own indexing, that is Google Scholar, cross-check, authenticate, cross-ref, the Keepers Registry, Script, Portico, ROAR, Directory of Open Access Scholarly Resources, OAI, PMH, Registered Data Provider, PKP Index. We will be soon applying for Scoopers too. We have a wide network of 100 plus internationally acclaimed keynotes across the globe who share their knowledge and guidance with our participants with open hands. We have a large number of committee members and advisors who support us and guide us through their expert opinion and decision-making capabilities. We couldn't have thought of reaching here without them. We also encourage our participants to connect with more than 15K plus followers on our social media platform where they can share their research and interest. Join our Facebook group and be a part of the discussions by researchers and academicians. We also have several collaborations with universities, colleges, institutes to better serve all interested and like-minded intellectuals. With a great enthusiasm and pride, we would like to announce our latest project, which is Terra Fellow Program in Education. The program offers an opportunity to learn key concepts and latest trend in the teaching industry from the academic stalwarts. We would like to share some of the past participant experiences with you. Thank you for your patience and valuable time moving forward with the conference. My name is Ritika Gupta and I am today's conference host. So let's just start. We have STRA President, Dr. Ludmila Greisen, full professor, Information System Department, Simon Kuznets, Kharkiv National University of Economics, Kharkiv, Ukraine. Let's just see her video.
Hello to everybody. My name is Ludmila Greisen, and I am happy to greet all the participants of the Science and Technical Research Association. It's a great honor for me to take up the position of the President of Association. A few words about myself. I earned master degree in applied mathematics. Also, I earned PhD and postdoctoral degree in pedagogical science. Currently, I'm working as a full professor of Information System Department, Simon Kuznets National University of Economics, Kharkiv City, Ukraine. During the last 3 years, I have been actively working within the association. I was invited as a keynote speaker different conferences where I shared the results of my research in the sphere of information technologies in education. Science and Technical Research Association aims to bring together worldwide researchers and professionals to encourage intellectual development, to create opportunities for networking and collaboration. These aims are achieved through academic networking, meetings, conferences, workshops, projects, and etc. So I would be happy if the current and new coming members of association and all of us together took the opportunity to go on their investigations, to share their research and the results of their research on the platform of the association, to make our world a better place to live. So see you later in our forthcoming event. Follow up in the sites and in Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ludmila Greisen, for your lovely words. Moving ahead with the conference. Next up, we have our eminent speaker, Marizan B. Contreras, PIE, MBA, MSME, Pinamucan proper, Batangas City, Philippines. Let's just see what she needs to say.
I am Engineer Marizan Contreras, and I'm a registered professional industrial engineer. So I belong to the mechanical engineering department of the University of Batangas, and I am a full-time associate professor here, and I spent my graduate studies at Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila, and currently I'm on my dissertation writing. Okay, and then as per my research, so I am a part of the ethics committee of the research department of the University of Batangas, and I am also serving as a session chairs for different international conferences, and also as an accreditor and auditor of different organizations. So I have published two researches, one in a Scopus Index journal, and the other one is in our journal here at the university. Okay, so yes, of course. I've been recommending this STRA and also Terra to my friends, that they can present, they can showcase their researches here at STRA and Terra.
Thank you, ma'am.
First, how many years? I think I joined STRA 2018. No? From then, I have attended the conference in Bangkok on site, and then I have attended this conference at Hong Kong, on site also, and then the online conference last. The first one was at Myeongdong, and then I've been attending your conferences ever since. And I think it's more advantageous for me because now of the location, of the expenses, and I think having this broadcasted live at Facebook,
Yes.
It's very good.
Thank you so much, Marizan ma'am, for your lovely words. Moving ahead. Next up, we have our next eminent speaker, Dr. Samanti Konara Singhe, Academic Director, Statistical Consultant, Institute of Mathematics and Management, Sri Lanka. Let's just see what she needs to say.
I am Dr. Samanthi Konarasinghe. I would introduce myself as a mathematician, as an artist. So I had been a lecturer for about 25 years and a statistical consultant for more than 2 decades. And at the moment, I am the statistical consultant and academic director of the Institute of Mathematics and Management, Sri Lanka. If I talk about my contact with the Eurasia Research, my first keynote speech was in Singapore. It's a physical contact. Then my last one is in Australia, Melbourne, 2020, just before the border closes. It is in 2020 March, as I remember. Yeah. So just before the border closes. So after that, I mean, we had no other option. I really appreciate the Eurasia Research and other organizations taking this initiative to conduct online sessions. Otherwise, we don't know when the borders will be open and we will be able to move together. So like earlier, so until then, we don't need to take a break. So online sessions are really good motivation for the researchers to be together and continue their work. But as I said earlier, we have to move whatever happened. Still, physical conferences are more interesting. The main reason is like we meet people, we greet people, and that kind of interaction. We are humans, no? So social animal need human interaction. That part is missing, but we have to adapt to the something is better than nothing philosophy. Eurasia Research, as I said, over the last few years, I have been with you. I have addressed many of your forums as a keynote speaker. So, one thing I really like is whatever happened in the world, you are not stopping your work. That means you are determined to do something. For some people, when something happened, like especially the government universities, okay, now is a pandemic, so we can't do anything. So that is not your motivation. So I must thank Professor Rola Charles and your team for not stopping your work. Whatever happened, you are going on. And that Melbourne conference is a very good example. About 40 or 50 participants have registered, but that time also some travel restrictions were there. Only 5 or 6 could attend the conference. But your your agent was there and he conducted the session from morning to evening without any problem. The number of participants was not a matter. So you promised to do something, because as an experienced person with these conferences all over the world, I know some private organizations, they get the money, they get the papers. Some, of course, they do publications, but they do not conduct the conferences, saying that they don't have sufficient participants. That means they are trying to cut down the cost for meals and the hotel, that like hall booking and things. But Eurasia Research is not like that. I said the very good example, 4 or 5 participants, still you conducted the session. That was in Victoria University Conference Center, Melbourne City. So it's a costly place, but you conducted it. That is your spirit. So, I mean, you keep your word. See you another day. Bye.
Bye. Hope to see you in our upcoming conferences. Thank you.
Of course, definitely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samanthi ma'am, for your wonderful words. Moving ahead with the conference. So this will be our conference schedule. That is, session 1 will be our keynote talk. Session 2 will be our team activity and photo session. And session 3 will be a technical talk. Also, I request everyone to please rename your Zoom account with your full name in English. This will help us to record your presence. You may ask your question related to the presentation in the chat section while the presentations are going on. And all the certificates, receipts, and proceedings will be sent to the participants within a week on their email IDs. The proceeding will include all the full papers and abstracts accepted for the conference. Moving ahead with the publication process, the publication process starts once the registration process is complete. The author needs to send their papers, consent forms, and reviewer details on the email ID that is convener@eurasiaresearch.info. The review for reports will be sent to the author once the review process is over. The final stage of publication starts after receiving the revised papers from the authors. Please note that the publication process takes around 50 days after the conference date if all the editorial guidelines are followed within the given deadline. Sorry everyone for the glitch. Okay, moving ahead. Today we have our first keynote speaker, that is Dr. Agneska Elendo Milesqua, professor and a head of faculty of psychology and the private University of Pedagogy in Białystok, Poland. Her topic is neuroscientific evidence regarding self-regulation and its failure. Agnieszka is a psychologist and a certified coach and a career counselor. She is a university professor and a head of faculty of psychology at the private University of Pedagogy in Białystok, Poland. She is the head person and the founder of the private primary school in Białystok and head person of private school preschool in Białystok. She is also an expert at the Ministry of National Education in Warsaw. Her major research interests include self-regulation, dysfunctional behavior, and social relations. Her scientist project is concentrated on self-regulation among middle school students and emotions and relationship between groups. She is also an editorial board member of Social Science and Humanities Research Association, Journal Humanities and Social Science, People Journal, International Journal of Social Science, and International Journal of English Literature and Social Science. She acts as an honorary peer reviewer for the Global Association of Researchers USA. She has published widely in Polish and English. She has authored several books: School Environment in the Student Experiences, Tendency of Changes and Dysfunction Among Middle Students. She has awarded Medal of Commission of National Education in Poland for exceptional service to the education and upbringing. Medal Delegate for the Urgency and Good Posture, granted by President of the City of Białystok. Award of Ministry of National Education for outstanding achievements in didactic and educational work. Now, let's just see her video presentation.
My name is Agnieszka Milewska. I am psychologist, a head of the Faculty of Psychology at the private University of Pedagogy in Białystok in Poland. I am a head person and founder of the private primary school in Białystok and also an expert at the Ministry of National Education. Before I start, I would like to thank for organizing this conference in a safety way. I'm honored to be invited and I'm glad to participate on conference online. The main aim of my presentation is to recognize neuroscientific evidence in the light of self-regulation. First, I will define the main word and explain the theoretical approach. Then I will move to the methodology aids and I present research results, concluding remark and practical implication. I would like to start my short talk from the citation from the article by William Kelly published in Annual Review of Neuroscience. One commonly held view is that humans have evolved specific control system, particularly within the prefrontal cortex, that permit planning and behavioral flexibility. Neuroscience studies discovered that the prefrontal cortex supports high-level cognitive abilities such as working memory, response inhibition, decision-making, and planning. But our knowledge of behavioral deficits is limited. Studies suggest that the damage in the part of the brain causes a profound inability to regulate social and emotional behavior. Now, the ability I'm talking about is not a reading or a writing. It's the ability to self-regulate. Now, for a long time, I have defined dysfunctional behavior as the behavior of naughty children. And then something happened to make me rethink my entire approach. When I finished my study, I wanted to go someplace where I felt really needed, someplace where I could make a difference. So I came to work as a psychologist at middle school, one of the largest schools in the city in terms of number of poor and neglected students. There had been only one psychologist to serve more than 2,000 children, but I tried to provide the best quality of psychological consultation and diagnosis regardless of working time. We targeted the typical dysfunctional behavior: violence, truancy, substance abuse. They understood how important it's move to the point from the area of students' dysfunctional behavior to the area of their potential possibilities and support their growth. It means that when I would like to concentrate on positive side, I wish to show you many definitions of the concept of self-regulation. Self-regulation is defined as the capacity of the individual to delay suppressed behavior, tendencies, and desires to follow social rules. It is the ability to control physical functions and emotions. Self-regulation is the process rather than the act. Where is self-regulation in our brain? Specific control systems are in the prefrontal cortex that permit superior planning and behavioral flexibility. Prefrontal cortex supports high-level cognitive abilities such as working memory, response inhibition, decision-making, and planning. Is the portion of the frontal lobe. And understanding of the brain mechanism can provide valuable insights into how people are able to regulate and control their behaviors, and what happens in those situations when they fail to do so. Although neuroscience has formed a relatively clear picture of the brain system that gives rise to reward motivation, but we still need to concentrate on the main factors and system of control that support self-regulation. So it's important to take into consideration the analysis which highlighted connection between self-regulation and positive results. In the area connected with academic achievement, researchers proved that children who have the ability to self-regulate their own behavior are functioning properly at school and achieve higher degrees. In the field of engagement in school activities, we know that self-regulating adolescents tend to work harder than their peers who lack self-regulating abilities. So researchers raise two critical questions: whether individual differences in reward cue reactivity reflect differences in the sensitivity of the reward system from one person to the next, or rather are the consequences of individual difference in self-control. Let me give you another example. Each of us had a contact with students whose behavior is not improving. Then we undertake a lot of different methods and techniques of interaction. For example, when a student has an educational difficulties, such as problem with reading, then teachers help him to improve reading skills and organize extracurriculum lessons. However, when difficulties in behavior appeared, teachers designate punishment, often when something happens and as an incidental action. It means that we take an action, but we still experience that despite the fact that we have taken all available methods and techniques of interaction, students' behavior is not improving. The actions are not effective? No, some youth need more support with self-regulation than others. Greater levels of support are needed for youth who have self-regulation difficulties due to adverse childhood experiences, which may include physical or emotional abuse or mental illness, and individual differences, which may be due to, for example, genetic factors. Emotional and social distress can cause self-regulation failure and lead to dysfunctional behavior, also may directly influence self-regulation control mechanism. I would like to highlight two theories as the theoretical background: the self-determination theory and the concept of Baumeister's self-control. The first of the theories that I am going to discuss indicated the level of motivation and describes autonomous and controlled motivation. Autonomous motivation focuses on the behavior that a person chooses which has a specific value for them. Controlled motivation focuses on the behavior that a person chooses to avoid punishment or to get a reward. This theory stressed the important role of satisfying the basic psychological needs and focused on the three universal needs: the need of the competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Experiencing high level of autonomy means that a person is able to self-regulate their behavior to be active, responsible, and show self-discipline. I would like to draw your attention to the concept of Baumeister's self-control. As you can see on this slide, self-control is the short-term process which refers to the internal resources to enable change of the reaction as a result of, for example, a situation of social pressure. The theory states that resources are limited. For example, studies show that a person who does two tasks, one after another, does the second task worse because some of the resources are limited. The effect of depletion of self-regulation can be modified by motivation and incentives and positive emotions. Theoretical background leads me to the methodology of this research. I define the independent and the dependent variables which are strongly linked with theoretical background. The indicators of student self-regulation are autonomous and controlled regulation. The ability to control include internal and external locus of control. The level of motivation determines internal and external motivation. And we have three basic psychological needs: the need to belong, to be competent, and to be autonomous. The quality of students' functioning in the school environment is presented in the area of the quality of contact with teachers and the degree of experience of the condition that's supporting students' growth. To measure the aspects of self-regulation, 5 psychological questionnaires were used: the self-regulation questionnaire learning, the questionnaire for locus of control study, school motivation questionnaire, basic psychological needs scale, and the questionnaire lesson assessment students. The research took place among 254 middle school students aged 13-15 in a public primary school in Białystok in the period from November 2018 to February 2019. In the field of self-regulation, the results suggest that girls possess a higher mean of values of self-regulation. It's important for girls to get a good mark, to fulfill their obligation as best as possible. They want to be proud that they do tasks as best as they can. But on the other hand, girls also state that it's easier for them to do what they are told by the teacher than think autonomously. And what is also important, students of 8th grade declare that it's easier to do what I'm told than to think about it. The achieved results suggest that the higher the autonomous self-regulation, the higher the level of student self-control will be, and the higher the level of student self-consciousness will be. Girls possess a higher means of values of self-regulation, but they present a dependent attitude. The analysis of responses in the field of school motivation shows that girls have a higher level of self-awareness and external motivation than boys, but lower level of self-control and autonomous motivation. The achieved results suggest that the higher the autonomous self-regulation, the higher the level of students' autonomy motivation will be, and the higher the level of students' self-awareness will be. But we have to remember that girls may be less persistent in action, feeling low responsibility for results and possible failures. In the field of satisfying the basic psychological needs, students 7th grades declare that they do not like the people with whom they interact. Students of 8th grades declare that they do not feel very competent, and when they are in the company of peers, they feel controlled and feel pressure. And it turned out that autonomous self-regulation is strongly linked with all the basic psychological needs: autonomy, satisfaction, and competence needs. It means that the higher the autonomy motivation, the higher the level of student satisfaction needs will be, and the higher the level of students' competence will be. The higher the self-control, the higher the level of students' competence needs will be. It could be also stated that students have an external locus of control on the scale of failure and also on the scale of success. Data shows that the class level is different in the area of control on the scale of failure. In the area of self-control on the scale of success, it turned out that generally students have an external locus of control, but girls have a higher level of internal locus of control than boys. Generally speaking, students have an external locus of control and low level of self-esteem, but students 8th grades have controlled regulation and have high level of self-consciousness. The results of my own research indicate that in contemporary education, teachers have to increase higher level of autonomous self-regulation among boys, because girls are able to self-regulate their behavior, to be active, responsible, and show self-discipline. But on the other hand, when the girls' activity is directed by the teacher's advice, teachers have to encourage girls to think autonomously. Research confirms that teachers should enhance students' internal locus of control and their engagement of school life, especially among boys. How we can help students develop self-regulation in a daily practice? Teachers have to engage students in decision-making process, upregulate using, for example, breaks, movement breaks, downregulate using, for example, music, try to adapt self-control games. And going to the end of the presentation, I would like to tell you my fundamental self-regulation principle. Love them first, teach them later. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Agnes ma'am, for your wonderful video presentation. And also, if anybody has any question, they can just put it in the chat box and the speaker will try to answer you there. Moving ahead with the conference. Next up, we have our team activity. Let's proceed towards our team building activity. Sometimes we miss the opportunity of connection and linkage with the fellow participants of the conference. This team activity is to encourage interaction among all the participants. One by one, we will share the views and solution on the topic of discussion, and also we will be conducting a photo session during the same. The topic of discussion is how important is mental health. Now let's just see the video.
We all have mental health. It is just as important as physical health. It is not only about mental illness or mental disorders. This is just one part of a bigger picture. It's best to think about mental health as being on a continuum, rather than people being either mentally ill or mentally well. We are all on the continuum, and we move up and down according to factors such as our genetic makeup and upbringing, our life circumstances, and the stresses we are under. At one end of the continuum, we have mental disorders, like depression or anxiety. And at the other end, we have states of positive mental health, when we're thriving, content, and fulfilled. The aim of mental health interventions is to move people up the continuum, so that they're able to reach their full potential and live satisfying lives. The World Health Organization describes mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Being mentally healthy means being resilient and able to cope with difficult times, feeling in control, being confident, feeling good about yourself, managing and expressing your emotions, building and maintaining good relationships. We all experience periods when we feel stressed, worried, anxious, sad, afraid, or angry. These are all normal emotions. However, when these emotions become severe enough that it interferes with a person's ability to function daily, and these feelings become persistent over time, then it can develop into a mental health problem. There are many different types of mental disorders. When left untreated, mental disorders can be chronic and long-lasting, and are associated with increased disability. They significantly have an impact on daily functioning and frequently interfere with family, social, and work responsibilities. Fortunately, there are effective treatments and evidence-based interventions available that aim to help individuals understand and cope with symptoms of mental illness. However, very few people with mental disorders access existing treatment services. This may be due to barriers such as the stigma attached to seeking help, the lack of understanding of mental health problems, uncertainty of how to get help, or the fear of disclosing mental health problems. Research shows that stigma remains one of the biggest factors preventing people from seeking help early for their mental health problems and getting the appropriate support they need. It is important to acknowledge that we all have mental health and have a personal responsibility to learn how we can improve and maintain our well-being in order to lead meaningful and satisfying lives.
All right, everyone. So this was our topic of discussion. So one by one, we'll start. Okay, then we'll start with Azila ma'am. Azila ma'am, what are your views on this topic?
Okay, thank you very much to our Miss Host. Okay, from my point of view, the mental health is actually really crucial element in our life because we can see the phenomena of suicidal thing and the increment of mental health cases is increasing gradually, especially right after our pandemic that hits globally. So from my opinion, the mental health is actually really affect our productivity as an individual, and also it might affect our relationship between our loved ones, even colleagues and friends, and even our relatives and siblings as well. And of course, it might be related to our crime and also victimization. And additionally, I would say that by having the mental awareness among, among everyone, okay, it is actually helpful and favorable to actually minimize and also curb the suicidal rate, especially, and also the self-injured thing. And I think it is quite a thing nowadays. So we should do more awareness on this issue. So that's my point of view at the moment.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your wonderful views. Moving ahead, Agnes is come, ma'am. Can you hear us? Hello, ma'am. Can you hear us?
It means Agnieszka?
Yeah. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to the conference.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can you share your views on the topic?
About the mental health. Yes, of course. I would like to present my agree with Azila that mental health is more important now than ever before. It impacts every area of our lives. Focusing on mental health care can increase productivity, enhance our self-image. Treating any mental health condition is crucial to stabilizing constructive behaviors, emotions, and thoughts. Focusing on mental health care, increase productivity, enhance self-image. I think that other benefits of taking care of mental health, reducing our anxiety. The mental health research identifies psychological factors. It means how biological, psychological, and social functioning are interacting. It means that mental health problems account for a quarter of all ill health. It's important. 3/4 of people with a mental health problem receive no treatment or support. 4 million people in England live with both a mental health problem and a long-term physical illness. So I think that we need to prepare a deeper research. And because, for example, the pandemic, COVID-19, has been associated with an increase in distress and mental health issues in people of all ages. So I think that mental health research can carry on making a difference to people's life. We have a lot still to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your views. Mohammed sir, can you hear us? Mohammed sir, am I audible to you? Yeah.
Yes, I can see.
Welcome
I
to the
can hear
conference.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you
To
so
the
much. Thank you so much. Sorry for late.
No
Okay.
worries. Yeah.
About my opinion, It's really short. I think mental health is essential, as you know, the air score is the main components of the air stability and coherence. So mental health keep a person internally coherent, and should be given much attention. Mental health controls humans' behavior, so paying attention to mental health by paying attention to mental health, we can guarantee the health of society. That was my opinion.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your
You're
opinion. Ratia ma'am, can you hear us? Ma'am, you need to unmute yourself. Ratia ma'am, am I audible?
Oh, พี่คิมต่อนะ
Thank you. And I think mental health is very important for my department. As the head of operating room department, I need to monitor not only the cell, but also its order with refer to surgeon, nurse, anesthesiologist, medical staff, and worker. The overall working is the major cause of depression, which might link to poor mental health. So we need to organize with view manage of the work schedule to optimize the work-life balance to our staff. Second, lack of confidence of experience in the operating procedure can lead to mental health problem too. As my presentation, we face the limitation of number in the head count to work with variant of procedure. The staff need to relocate to operate kind of surgery. So we have done together with honors in the Department of Seeking of Satisfaction to perform totally department case with confidence and happiness. One, they have the schedule to attend to the every complex orthopedic case of surgery with happiness and confidence, leading to good patient outcome and good employee mental health. Personally, I believe to that good mental health may prevent the Alzheimer for the other person through talking, asking, discussion with other could be improved to the mental health too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Yubai Can, am I audible? Yvonne, can you hear us? Yubi can you unmute your mic? Okay, they might be facing some glitches. Okay, then we'll just begin with the conference. So our first presenter of the day is Emmanuel Innocent Idon, School of Business and Society, Cheswan University of Technology, South Africa. The topic is management competencies and organizational performances at a research institution in South Africa. I would like to tell everyone that because of his prior engagement, he's unable to join us. So he'll just come later. But we'll just move forward. Our next presenter is Ratia Santisapon, Department of Operation Theatre, Louis Province, Louis Hospital, Highland. Her topic is the development model of nursing care in patients with reconstructive surgery of total knee replacement, Louis Hospital. Let's just see the video presentation.
I'll be with you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ratiya Santi Satapon. I am a registered nurse at Loy Hospital. Here is a picture of our hospital. It is a public hospital, consists of 450 beds, founded in the year 1951, located in Loy Province, which is 600 kilometers from Bangkok, the capital city of Thailand. And with the brief introduction done, now it is my honor to present our study. It is called the Development of Nursing Care Model in Patients with Reconstructive Surgery of the Total Knee Replacement, Loy Hospital, Thailand, to all of you today. First of all, I would like to introduce you to the picture on the right. It's called Pita Khon. These costumes are worn in Pita Khon Festival, which is one of the most festive festivals in Thailand. This event takes place between March and July, where festival goers dress up in ghost masks, parade and party through the street of Dansai district. With this in mind, I hope to present our study to be as colorful and joyful as the masks they wear, starting with the background of knee osteoarthritis, followed by the total knee replacement, the method of our study, the result, discussion, suggestion, and the seamless care model. Knee osteoarthritis is typically the result of a wear and tear and a progressive loss of articular cartilage. It is also known as degenerative joint disease of the knee, so it is mostly found in elderly. There are 570 million patients with knee osteoarthritis all over the world, and 6 million in Thailand. At Loy Hospital, we perform around 80 total knee replacement cases yearly. According to the 5-year retrospective analysis of medical data, we have found that there were 11 to 17% cases delays in surgery from 2017 to 2019. Additionally, the incident rate of post-operative redness were between 2.8% and 4% during the same period. We analyzed that these delays and complications occur due to the inadequate nursing care targeting patients that had undergone total knee replacement. In order to fill the knowledge gap for proper management in terms of nursing care model and follow-up plan, we decided to develop the nursing care model with clear and precise steps to solve these issues. The objective of this study was to develop a nursing care model for patients undergoing total knee replacement at Loy Hospital. 2 cycles of plan, action, observe, reflect model based on Kimis and McTaggart have been implemented from April to July 2020. The first cycle was to develop the nursing care model, while the second cycle was to implement the model into routine practices. According to Taro Yamane formula, we had determined the sample size out of 58 population with 95% confidence level and 10% margin of error. So it should be at least 37 participants, where we added 20% to secure the drop-off number. Finally, there were 50 peri-operative nurses and 36 patients participate in this study. For tools, we use triangulation model to collect different types of data, which are the interview, workshops, evaluation form, and satisfaction survey. The data collection include in-depth interviews with 15 OR nurses, 3 brainstorming and reflection workshops with 50 OR nurses, review of medical data, and satisfaction evaluation. For statistical analysis, we use status software to determine the results using Mann-Whitney non-parametric test. According to the first workshop, we had defined 4 groups of root causes, which are complexity of roles and responsibilities, knowledge management, nursing rotation, and individual issues. Some participants mentioned that the knowledge management were not well organized, therefore they could not learn from the model. The roles and rotation structured the staff to rotate to other departments, not only in just orthopedic department, so they could not manage to be expertise. According to these courses, we planned the pre, peri, and post-operative models. We implemented the models for 6 weeks. Then, we observe and evaluate the outcome in terms of effectiveness and satisfaction. We analyzed the data and found that the satisfaction score was around 2.91 due to some misunderstanding, and also because the peri and post-operative protocols had yet to be completely established. After completing the analysis of the first cycle, the second cycle we had developed 4 protocols, which are job transfer, conference, follow-up plan, and clinical guideline, in order to target the 3 challenges that were identified. These challenges include the complexity of the roles, the unclear education and knowledge management, and the unclear roles. We then implemented these protocols for 6 weeks. Observation and evaluation were followed. From that, we were able to achieve the satisfaction score of 4.33 due to the fact that it had improved the quality of care and reduced the working duration. Here on the left is the protocol that we had developed, and on the right are the photos that were taken during the implementation phase. This table shows the satisfaction of nursing model before and after implementing protocols from cycle 1 and cycle 2. The data was collected from pre, intra, and post-operation. The result shows overall increase in satisfaction from both cycles after it had been implemented, with the p-value lower than 0.001. Here, it shows the satisfaction score after completing the first cycle was 2.91 plus minus 0.4, and the second cycle was 4.2 plus minus 0.3. As for the clinical outcomes, we took into account of 4 outcomes, which are incident of delay in surgery, pain score, incident of redness, and activity of daily living. None of them display significant result when compared with the outcome of those that were implemented before. This was due to the limited number of patients participate in this part. It would be better to have a further follow-up. Now for the discussion. The nursing care model had been developed by the OR team. We conclude that the implementation of the model does improve the standard of care. By following the protocol, the complication rate was reduced. The work limitation had improved. The cost of re-sterilization was reduced, and the incident of delay in surgery was minimized. Although we were able to improve the standard of care and satisfaction, we were unable to replace staffs or stop nursing rotation to expertise them due to the limited workforce. As of now, Loi Province is still not ready for the increase of workload or the number of TKR cases. Hence why we suggested that this model cannot be succeeded without the collaboration amongst the team. It is recommended to follow the nursing care protocols and further develop protocols for other departments, which are inpatient, outpatient, operation room, and continuous care. So we had continued our work on the continuous care by establishing a seamless care model. The seamless care model is given to primary care units to use as a guideline for screening and education patients with knee osteoarthritis. Some are referred to secondary or tertiary care according to the following criteria. 1. diagnosed using AP radiography. 2. Having joint narrowing. 3. Having the age over 60 years old. 4. Have been treated with other alternatives, for example, medicine, weight controlling, and exercise for at least 6 months. Instruction of nursing care model for total knee replacement was established for OR nurses who worked at Loy Hospital to perform their effective practices for patients undergoing total knee replacement. It was developed by collecting data from evidence and research. It covers 3 phases: pre-operation, peri-operation, and post-operation. By implementing these instructions, the patient have received the improved and standardized nursing care model. The practices were effectively performed. That is, the quality of care had been developed. We expect that other hospitals or care units can adopt it and improve their practices as well. If you have any feedback or would like to learn more about our model, please do not hesitate to contact us. Here is our research team, including me, Ratiya, is Mr. Apichat, and Ms. Bangchai. We are registered nurses from Loy Hospital, and we are interested in development of nursing care model, infection control, and health behavior. That's all for our presentation. Please feel free to ask if you have any question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ratia ma'am, for the wonderful presentation. Would you like to add something here? Ma'am, would you like to add something? Am I audible? Ma'am, you need to unmute the mic. Okay, then if anybody has any questions, they can just put it in the chat box and the speaker will try to answer you there. We'll just move forward with the conference. Next up, we have our next presenter of the day, Mohammad Farasit, chemistry, Islamic Azad University, Tehran, Iran. His topic is investigating the optimal condition for filtration of heavy metals by active carbon in an aqueous solution. Let's just see the video presentation.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Greeting to all of you, dear science lovers. I'm Mohammad Farsad. I completed my Bachelor of Islamic Azad University, and now I'm really pleased to have your valuable time and present you with a helpful paper that's the result of my research. Due to my interest in water treatment, I realized that the follow-up and research about this topic could open the way for other researchers. So our research is topic, and now I want to present the abstract for you. Through history, the issue of healthy water has become critical. Scientists have been looking for a way to purify water because, as you know, 55 to 60% of our body is water. So water is a fundamental and vital need. Many factors can cause water pollution. One of these factors is presence of heavy metals in water. Heavy metals weigh more than 6 grams per cubic centimeter or have an atomic mass of more than 15. Heavy metals cannot be decomposed and accumulate quickly, and they're stored in body tissues and cause disease. For example, zinc is a heavy metal that can cause severe damage to the liver, prostate glands, etc., and etc. in high concentration, and cause cancer in body tissues in worse condition. One of the ways to remove heavy metals from water is by using activated carbon. Due to adsorption size on its surface, activated carbon can absorb these metals well and purified water with a high percentage. My articles aim to determine the best situation for filtering heavy metals from water or wastewater using activated carbon. For this purpose, three heavy metals, cobalt, copper, and zinc, have been deposited as representative of heavy metals. Then four main parameters were examined on them. The first parameter was the pH, pH of the solution, which HCl and NaOH adjusted. The range of pH was between 2 and 8. Then connect time of adsorbents. Adsorbents, I mean activated carbon. Then the connect time of the adsorbent with heavy metals in the solution was checked. In the time interval of 1 to 120 minutes at specific time. The following parameters is the required amount of carbon to have the desired result, which is between 0.1 grams and 4 grams. Furthermore, at the end, the size of particles was checked. For this purpose, a metal plate called mesh was used. The mesh allows particles with a desired size or standard size to pass, which in this research is from 38 to 595. For this research, I used various devices such as flame atomic absorption spectroscopy to check the concentration of heavy metals, and also pH meter to check the pH of solutions, and magnetic stirrer for the mixing solutions, and etc. Also, to increase the accuracy of the solutions prepared with a specific concentration, the concentration was determined once before and once after the filtration process with the FAS device, a flame atomic absorption spectroscopy device. Where significant results were obtained in this research, the optimal pH for these three elements was obtained within 5.5 to 6, and so it means that by decreasing or increasing the pH, the adsorption sites are disabled and the adsorption decreased drastically. Regarding the time, the best time was around 30 minutes, and after 30 minutes, the filtration rate is mostly the same. And if it does, it's not beneficial. About the optimal mass amount was 2 grams per liter, and after 2 grams, again, there is no significant change in results, or if it does, it's less than 1%. Concerning the size of activated carbon particles, I understood that the smaller is better because, for example, by decreasing the size of activated carbon, we increase the surface, and by increasing the surface, we can have more adsorption rate. And in the next part, I examined two surface adsorption isotherms to check their adsorption type, Langmuir and Freundlich. The adsorption was more consistent with Langmuir model, which indicates the monolayer surface adsorption. So, in the final part of this research, the ideal possible mode for filtering heavy metals from water was examined, and in which 97.87% of zinc metal was filtered according to the conditions in the laboratory. And concerning to the novelty of my research, according to the studies I did, I realized that no one has ever paid attention to the study of zinc absorption on activated carbon. Also, nor has there been any research related to the size and amount of activated carbon. Okay, finally, thank you so much for your attention. I'm really sorry I wasn't able to be there, unfortunately. As you know, unfortunately, these days we're facing too many limitations and problems in Iran. So this is the main reason why I wasn't able to be there. But thank you so much for your attention. And please do not hesitate to connect me if you have any specific question, and be successful.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for your wonderful video presentation. Would you like to add something?
What? Sorry?
Would you like to add something?
No, it was.
All right. Okay, then. If anybody has any question, they can just put it in the chat box and the speaker will try to answer you there. So we'll be moving forward with the conference. Our next presenter is Azila Adnan, Faculty of Science and Marine Environment, University of Malaysia, Terengganu, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Her topic is bacterial cellulosis and emerging future biomaterials. You may also read the abstract. And now we'll just see the video presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Azila Adnan from University Malaysia Terengganu, Malaysia. So I would like to share my presentation today entitled Bacterial Cellulose or BC and Emerging Future Biomaterial. So the sources of cellulose, actually we can get our cellulose from plant and also from the bacteria. However, from plant specifically, we can get our cellulose from the cell walls here. And then from the bacterial cellulose, we can obtain our cellulose through a fermentation process by some kind of bacteria, which is called as Acetobacter bacteria, that secretes cellulose nanofibers. So if we compare the plant cellulose and bacterial cellulose, there are some advantages of BC over plant cellulose. That will include it is finer and more complex. There's no hemicellulose or lignin or pectin that present in bacterial cellulose. The fiber is much stronger and it can be grown to any shape and thickness that we desire. It can be produced on a variety of carbon source or sugar source, and also nitrogen source. So carbon source, we could actually use glucose, sucrose, fructose, maltose, lactose, or glycerol, or mannitol, or sorbitol. So nitrogen source, we could use the well-known one, which is yeast extract, beef extract, soybean extract, corn stick liquor, and so forth. And in terms of biocompatibility and biodegradability, if we compare with these two types of cellulose, bacterial cellulose has higher degree of biocompatibility and biodegradability. As an overview, in 1838, the cellulose was actually first discovered by Anselme Payen, and he was able to actually isolate the cellulose from plant, and then he characterized it. And by the way, in 1886, the A.J. Brown discovered the cellulose that has been synthesized by a kind of bacteria, and specifically from Acetobacter xylinum, and then it was called as bacterial cellulose. So bacterial cellulose is actually a homopolysaccharide that has glucose monomer or glucose repeating unit, that combines by a bond that we call as glycosidic bond. And biocellulose or the bacterial cellulose is actually non-toxic, non-carcinogenic, and really high biocompatible material. And the porous structure of BC is really good for a physical barrier against external infection. So that BC is well or widely used in wound healing biomaterial application. And also BC has high water holding capacity or water retention availability due to the hydrophilic behavior. So that will help the wound heals better and faster when the wound is being constantly moisturized. And again, bacterial cellulose is free from hemicellulose, pectin, and lignin. So these are the look of the BC pellicles. So the A diagram is showing the BC pellets, while B and C are showing the sheet or the layers of bacterial cellulose membranes. Okay, there are types of application of BC as a versatile biopolymer. So the first one we can see here, it is widely used in biomedical industry or application. So usually bacterial cellulose is used to make artificial blood vessel and also artificial skin, which is applicable to the skin burn or skin burn patient, and also it can act as a wound patch for wound healing mechanism, and also it is quite attractive in drug delivery application, and also making audio devices, and also in textile and paper industry. So for textile and paper industry, bacterial cellulose is starting to gain an attraction or attention from the researchers to make biocellulose clothes and also nanocellulose papers. And meanwhile, in food industry, we already know that biocellulose or the bacterial cellulose is really useful in making nata de coco, the famous Filipino dessert, and also it can be used as a fat replacer. So these are some findings that has been obtained. So if we look at this picture, these are the structures of cellulose nanofibrils from under the scanning electron microscope. And so for A, B, C, D, E, F, the bacterial cellulose was actually fermented under different carbon sources. So if we can see that A was fermented in glycerol media, while B in sorbitol media, C mannitol, another alcohol sugar, and fructose is another monosaccharide, and E in disaccharide, which was glucose, and also F was in glucose media. So if we compare the structures, we can see that the different types of carbon sources or sugars affect bacterial cellulose appearance under the scanning electron microscope. So for agitation speed during the fermentation process is actually affecting the BC production as well. So we know that agitation speed or the mixing speed during the fermentation is crucial or important for mixing the media to supply even air or oxygen in the reactor. However, if we increase the speed beyond 80 RPM, roughly here, we can see that the BC production or BC yield was decreasing. So perhaps it could be due to the loss of substrate by direct oxygen, and also due to the shear force during the agitation process. So another one is we applied additive such as riboflavin, vitamin C or ascorbic acid, and also ethanol. And the final one was vinegar or acetic acid. So we can conclude here, we can see that different types of additive affected BC production or BC yield. And if we have a close look, ascorbic acid or vitamin C produce higher BC yield or BC production compared to riboflavin, ethanol, and also acetic acid. So if we look again, the riboflavin here shown to decrease the BC productivity. That was in agreement with a study by Ishikawa in 1995 with his co-workers. And also we can see that alcohol or ethanol shown to inhibit BC production at higher concentration at 1% volume per volume. So that is also agreeing the study by Zhu et al. In 2022. Meanwhile, the acetic acid shown to have no obvious effect on the production of BC, which is also supported in a study by Aswini and co-workers 2022. So another one here I would like to share was if we ferment the bacterial cellulose or produce bacterial cellulose under two types of Hestrine shred media, which the green one is the conventional or the common Hestrine shred media, and also the yellow bar here is showing the modified Hestrine shred media. So the green one shows lower production of BC yield. However, in modified HS media or Hestrine shred media, we can see the BC yield is higher. So the modified Hestrine shred media was containing glycerol constip liquor that proves to produce more BC or bacterial cellulose compared to glucose constip liquor as their carbon and nitrogen source. So we can conclude that glycerol is actually can allow a consistent production throughout the growing time and in larger amounts of BC. Okay, so for a conclusion, we can see from the earlier bacterial cellulose, which is the emerging biomaterial and also biopolymer, has numerous applications such as biomedical, food industry, textile and paper, drug delivery, and also other types of application as well, including the audio device making. So in future, we can say that it takes a multidisciplinary approach to consider the feasibility and also the potential benefits of BC in the development of other applications that might benefit the humankind.
Thank you so much, Zila ma'am, for your wonderful video presentation. And if anybody has any question, they can just put it in the chat box and the speaker will try to answer you there. We'll move forward. Next up, we have our next presenter, Assistant Professor Chester Drum, Department of Medicine, National University of Singapore. The topic is bioengineering with thermostable exoshells. Let's just see the video presentation.
Hello, so I wanted to say welcome to the fourth International Conference on Science Technology here in Paris. My name is Chester Drum, so I'm a physician scientist at National University of Singapore. and I'm happy to electronically meet everybody today. So I had originally designed a bit longer talk regarding the concept of innovation as applied to several different fields, which I've been fortunate to be involved in. I understand that time is a bit abbreviated, so what I've done is I've taken that talk and focused on one specific application of nanotechnology, which we developed in the lab. And so I will append that to this introduction, and also an invitation to anybody who would like to reach out for collaboration or friendly scientific discussion, and I'll certainly look forward to the rest of hearing the rest of everybody else's presentation here at the conference. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and I hope you enjoy the following review.
Field is more therapeutic development, generally in the field of nanomedicine. And this project actually was this was actually started at MIT. So this is one project that I worked on in Bob's lab, and ultimately has done quite well. So the concept here is small molecules, which is the majority of drugs that are given all over the world, of course, have almost complete chemical freedom. You can make just about anything out of chemistry, but they're often limited by the way in which they interact with a drug target. Now, proteins, and so this happens to be an antibody, can bind virtually anything. However, the manufacture and the chemical qualities of a protein are not suitable for example, many oral applications. And on top of that, when you make protein biologics, you're limited by essentially what nature can do. There's a fixed number of amino acids and post-translational modifications that you can use to create a novel drug. So this is a much more limited in the chemical space that you can explore. This is very liberal in that regard, but this has amazing specificity and biological activity, which sometimes is hard to recapitulate in the small molecule space. So the overarching sort of idea for this project was, can we create a system where you can use chemistry to make things like this? And if you can do that, then you have complete chemical control that would bridge the gap between small molecule therapeutic development and biological therapeutic development. So that was the big idea, to solve the problem of synthetic macromolecular preparation with a single platform solution, and invent a method for proteins to be created by chemical synthesis and folded into functional form. And we thought nanotechnology would be a good idea for that. So just a brief background. Even before I was at MIT, I did pure protein chemistry. So that's my background, by the way. So if you wonder why in the world am I doing this type of project, that's why. So when I was a graduate student, I did all protein crystallography and biophysics. And so this is my graduate program, my graduate thesis. And this talk may be the last time I ever get to present it, so I might as well just put it up here. It was quite a nice publication on the cover of Nature back in the day. It's also my inspiration for going forward, in terms of how I think about protein engineering and therapeutic development. So with this, we got really amazing support from SMART. They believed it. You got to have a stakeholder that believes that you're going to get there. The NMRC has also supported me with 2 CSA grants. which really has made my career possible. So I have a deep appreciation for both of these institutions, and I hope we're going to be able to take this grand idea and turn it around into something that really will be world-changing and justify their investment in not just the technology, but my lab as well. So this is an example of what it looks like. So you can take the particle and you can engineer the charge statuses inside. This is a CPK rendering of the protein shell. It's a nanoparticle about 12 nanometers across, and it can harbor other proteins inside. So this is a hard shell, and it can put therapeutical deliveries on the inside. Some of the molecular engineering we did on that. This is the first paper that we did, which was first study that we did, which was ultimately published in Nature Comms, and we just saw extremely dramatic effects on how this shell could fold and stabilize proteins on the inside. You can expose this to high concentration trypsin, and it retains the activity. So incredible chemical robustness from this protein shell, which we engineered. Then the next study was to take that initial observation and move it into something that was essentially industrialized. So could we really take completely unfolded proteins, not connected to the shell, internalize them into our nanoparticle, close the nanoparticle, and take something with no function and no structure and forcibly fold it into something active? And the thing is, if this is unstructured, this can be synthesized. So DNA synthesis is getting longer and longer. Peptide synthesis is also getting longer and longer. But the difference with peptide synthesis is you're free to use whatever chemical entity you want when you synthesize a peptide by virtue of using a machine. And that's what makes it exciting. You can make an entire protein of the opposite optical chirality if you want to. That's like the incredible freedom you have with chemistry. And so this project took some work. So we decided we were going to prove to the world that this technology works in almost any conceivable case. And so this is how we titrate the particles to create different functions. Even an experiment like this, and I realize it's small, but each one of these is a different formulation of the particle, 3 individual experiments, and then each one of these histograms is a different protein, completely different protein. Some of them synthesized chemically, and some of them created in E. coli and fully denatured to simulate a synthesized peptide. We created an industrialization protocol such that anybody can use this technology to fold in vitro proteins. And to be clear, the application space of this was enormous. So we could go all the way from very small conotoxins, which it's hard to even see given the scale, to things like GFP, to bigger and bigger, albumin, to multimers. So alkaline phosphatase is a dimer. This is an ion channel. So we literally, it even works in folding ion channels. This is a trimeric ion channel called OMP2A. And then even P53, which is notoriously delicate protein as a tumor suppressor, in a tetramer in its functional form, we even were able to recapitulate high quality production of P53 in scales that have never been seen before. And then lastly, we wanted to prove that we could have an in vivo effect. So this is yet another type of rendering where we used a layered nanoparticle system to create a catalysis that's not normal for human biology. So you take a prodrug, and an iron reaction center converts that to chemotherapy, and it creates the chemotherapy only at the site of the tumor. And the amazing thing is, if you put these particles in and then just give a simple nutritional prodrug, the particles convert that prodrug to a chemotherapy only at the site of the tumor. And you can see our live animal imaging here. And only when you put all that combination together, you can completely regress solid tumors such as breast cancers. That is the model that we've used here. So here we're using the unique characteristics of this nanoparticle to now push into in vivo demonstrations of therapy. And this was published in quite a nice journal called the ACS Nano. And then this is the last slide that I'll show on this. But we said, okay, well, if we can do that, we can even do something that no one's done, and that's start using nanoparticles as an oral delivery agent. So generally, nanoparticles are not relevant to oral delivery of therapeutics, but this particular construction is so robust that we get incredibly robust, incredibly strong retention and signal within the GI tract, despite all of the acid and digestive proteases that would destroy other types of therapeutics. So this paper was recently published as well. So this is something that we've likewise, following Bob's advice, heavily protected. So Sharon Go is our representative ILO, and the communication on this so far has largely been academic. So we've been fortunate to get some journal covers. ACS Nano is a very high impact journal. Nature Comms we've published 2 Nature Comms papers already. We had another journal cover there. So within the academic space, I think we've had 15 publications in this area already, but even the media itself has picked this up as well. I just did an interview with Channel News Asia regarding the technology, and our trusty Straits Times colleagues as well were very helpful in giving us this nice feature here. Siddharth and Priya work in my lab, so that was very nice. And so implementation. This is it's not fully implemented yet, but we're getting very, very close. And so again, working at NUS and being in Singapore, we have these amazing opportunities for things like scale-up grants. So here, we worked with A-STAR to come up with some common goals for bioproduction, and we got a superb grant to essentially industrialize the production of this nanotechnology and nanotherapeutic. We're looking at one more therapeutic application. We got a very nice commercialization seed award again from NUH. And ultimately, the big idea of this particular technology is really to reshape the field of therapeutic design by fusing chemical synthesis with biological specificity. And imagine if you go to a peptide synthesis company and say, I don't want a denatured peptide sent to me, I want this macromolecule custom made. And then they just turn on the machine and make it. That's the ultimate endpoint where we're going. And I think that this is quite exciting. So as a review, the development, it can be a long road in deep tech. So remember, I started this at MIT, and I really started that my graduate career, studying protein chemistry. That's a long time. So, that's kind of where the 20 years of my title comes from. Communication, the deeper the technology, the more rarefied, the more novel, really the more validation you need. And in science, that comes through peer review. And so that's why we've really concentrated for this innovation of getting an enormous amount of peer review, distributing amongst multiple investigators where everybody validates the technology in their lab, and then sends us the result and we publish together. And so from an implementation perspective, I think that the implementation scale up in US.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. Chester, sir, would you like to add something here?
Yes, happy to take any questions, and here, I'll catch up with you, okay? And I must say I'm enjoying my first trip to Paris here. So I just walked past the Arc de Triomphe, and I wish my Iranian colleague were here as well, because we could talk about science. And as my home country is the United States, we could watch the World Cup together here in a day or two as well. So Mohammed, I wish you were here in Paris with the conference. But happy to take any questions, and especially I also really enjoyed the talk on the biocellulose, which was eye-opening for me. So here, let me go to the side here. So happy to take any questions.
All right, so thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody has any question, just put it in the chat box and the speaker will try to answer it there.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll just move forward with the conference now. Our next presenter is Dr. Zahra Mansoor, Pediatric Al Zilia Children's Specialty Hospital, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Topic is a questionnaire to assess nursing compliance to practices related to central line care in our hospital to prevent and reduce the rate of central line associated bloodstream infection. You can also read the abstract. And now we'll just see the video presentation.
Hello. So I wanted to say
hello everyone. It gives me great pleasure to be presenting at this conference. My name is Dr. Zahra Mansour and I'm a pediatric resident working in Dubai. I'll be presenting a clinical audit that I conducted in my hospital titled A Questionnaire to Assess Nursing Compliance to Practices Related to Central Line Care in Our Hospital to Prevent and Reduce the Rates of Central Line Associated Bloodstream Infections. I hope you enjoy my presentation. This clinical audit was conducted by the surgical department in my hospital. Just a bit of a background regarding this topic. Central venous catheters, or CVC, play an essential role in the management of patients with chronic medical conditions who require complex care. They are highly imperative for regular medication administration and blood sampling when it is difficult to gain or maintain a peripheral access, and for delivery of specialized treatment such as hemodialysis and parenteral nutrition or TPN. Despite their utility, these devices predispose patients to various complications, including the risk of a central line associated bloodstream infections, or, as I will be referring to in my presentations, CLABSI. Typically, non-tunneled catheters are more susceptible to CLABSI, and this risk is further increased by long duration of indwelling, extensive replacement, frequent repositioning, and poor handling. CLABSI are most commonly caused by gram-positive organisms and are considered a major cause of prolonged hospitalization and increased mortality. Pathogens responsible for causing CLABSI include Coagulase negative Staphylococcus for 37.8%, followed by Enterococcus, which account for 11%, Staph aureus, followed by Enterobacter, Candida, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and finally, Klebsiella pneumonia. The Center for Disease and Control Prevention, the CDC, has developed guidelines for the preventions of CLABSI. At the bulk of those guidelines are recommendations for nurses regarding handling and maintenance for central lines in an ICU and non-ICU settings. Before starting the clinical audit, we set a couple of objectives. Our objectives were to assess awareness and perceptions of policies and practices related to CLABSI prevention within the nurses in our hospital, and to implement a surveillance program for central line associated bloodstream infections, and finally, to determine if compliance to these preventive measures will reduce the risk of CLABSI. Regarding the methods, we first came up with the audit plan. So we adopted the CDC guidelines for handling and maintenance of CVCs and assessed the compliance rate by distributing an online questionnaire to all the nurses involved in patient care. The questionnaire consisted of 15 questions, which assess the awareness and compliance of nurses to those guidelines, and how often do they adhere to them. Regarding the guidelines, the questionnaire was based on the 2011 CDC guideline for prevention of intravascular catheter-associated bloodstream infections. Those guidelines targeted healthcare professionals responsible for handling, surveillance, and control of infections in hospital, outpatient, and home healthcare settings. After distributing the questionnaires, we got the results of the first cycle. The first cycle involved 32 nurses from the inpatient pediatric wards in our hospital. The results of their compliance to each specific guidelines were as follows. So those are the results that we found presented in the table below. The highest compliance rate was to changing dressing using aseptic techniques with clean and sterile gloves, while the lowest compliance was to using peripheral sites prior to using the central line while collecting blood cultures. So the guidelines included: are the central line maintained and accessed only by trained personnel who have demonstrated competency, for which it showed 90% of compliance. The second guideline was regarding hand hygiene and if it is performed before and after replacing, accessing, repairing the catheter, and there was a compliance of 96.9%. The third guideline was regarding catheters and if the catheters were accessed with sterile devices, for which the nurses showed 93%. The fourth was regarding access ports and if access ports or tubes were scrubbed immediately prior to the use with an appropriate aseptic chlorhexidine, and it showed 93%. 100% compliance were for the guideline regarding dresses, and if dresses were changed using aseptic techniques and using clean or sterile gloves. The 6 guidelines consisted of: is clean skin prepared with chlorhexidine with alcohol during dressing changes, and it showed 81.3%. Number 7 was: are dresses that are wet, soiled, immediately replaced, for which it showed compliance of 87%. Next is regarding temporary central line. Are the gauze dressing changed every 2 days or semi-permeable dressing at least every 7 days, for which it showed 81.3%. And so on. So those were the guidelines that we used during in our clinical audit, and the nurses were specifically asked about those guidelines in the questionnaire. Presented here are pie graphs showing compliance to each guideline. Figure 1 shows 96.9% compliance to guideline number 2, which insisted on hand hygiene. Figure number 2 showed 81.3% compliance to cleaning the skin with chlorhexidine during dressing changes. Figure number 3 showed 81.3% compliance to changing the gauze every 2 days or transparent dressing every 7 days, while the last figure showed 78.1% compliance to replacing administration sets every 4 days. And it showed that our hospital had very good results and very good compliance rate to the guidelines that are put in order to prevent central line associated bloodstream infections. After finishing the audit, we came up with a couple of recommendations to help the nurses to improve their practice and therefore decrease the risk of infection and increase the risk of morbidity and mortality among our pediatric patients. The recommendations were: the central lines should be only maintained and accessed by trained personnel, and to disinfect catheter hubs, needleless connectors, and injection ports before accessing the catheter, and that administration sets used for patients with prolonged hospitalizations should be replaced every 4 to 7 days, and to pay closer attention to the dressings and the area around it. Dressings that are wet, soiled, or dislodged should be immediately replaced. To use chlorhexidine containing dressings for central lines. To use antimicrobial locks for central lines. To assess the need for continued intravascular access on a daily basis during multidisciplinary rounds, and to remove non-essential catheters. To ensure appropriate nurse-to-patient ratio and limit the use of float nurses in the ICU, and to perform regular surveillance for CLABSI in ICU and non-ICU settings, and measure the unit-specific incidence of CLABSI. So these recommendations were outlined in a leaflet, and then the leaflet was distributed among the nurses for them to follow the new recommendations that we came up with after conducting the clinical audit. Next was the second cycle of the clinical audit in order to perform a closed loop audit. So a leaflet containing all the above recommendations was distributed to all the nurses involved in handling the central lines. They were advised on proper central line care techniques to reduce the risk and prevalence of central line infections. The head of infectious disease department was informed regarding deficiencies in our hospital guidelines. A second questionnaire was performed and distributed to the nursing staff, and it showed significant effect and improvement in adherence to the guidelines by 60%, which reflected a very positive outcome. We have also contributed to the development of strategies that increased adherence to the local guidelines. So we had a very positive outcome as a result of our clinical audit, and we improved adherence to the guidelines and therefore improved the practices in our hospital and decreased the rate of infection. Those are the references that were used in the clinical audit, including the CDC guidelines that were used. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed my presentations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation. And if anybody has any question, they can just put it in the chat box and the speaker will try to answer you there. Also, Zara Mansoor, ma'am, would you like to add something here?
No, that's it. But if anyone has any question, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, thank you so much. So now we'll just move forward to the conference. Our next presenter is Maid Suryadi, Department of Preventive Medicine and Public Health, Faculty of Medicine, Udayana University, Denpasar, Indonesia. Topic is type of residence, physical activity, and chronic disease in Indonesia. You can also read the abstract. All right, Maid Suryadi, ma'am, now you can just share your screen and you can just Maid Suryadi, ma'am, you can just live present now.
Oh, hello, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, I'm sorry, but can you hear my voice?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Hello, so my name is Made Ayuhita Putri Suryadi. So I am from Udayana University, Bali, Indonesia. So today I would like to present a poster presentation about type of residence, physical activity, and chronic diseases in Indonesia. So for the background, around 74% of all deaths globally. This is attributable to chronic diseases. This includes heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and chronic lung disease. And 86% of the 17 million individuals who have died prematurely or before the age of 70, or more than 3/4 of all non-communicable deaths. This occurs in low and middle income countries. So in this study, we sought to assess the differences in the type of residents on the prevalence of chronic diseases in Indonesia, and also the differences in physical activity on the prevalence of chronic diseases in Indonesia. So for the methods, for the subjects, so we identified the subjects from the Indonesian Family Life Survey. So this was the 4th wave of the IFLS. And the IFLS gathers health-related data such as self-reported assessments of overall health status, symptoms, pain, chronic conditions. This was identified by a doctor, and time spent engaging in various physical activities and biomarkers measurements. And for IFLS-4, this took place in 2007 until 2008. So in our study, we looked at chronic diseases. So how did we identify this? So we identified chronic diseases based on the question. So this was the original question in the survey of IFLS-4. So have a doctor or paramedic, nurse, midwife ever told you that you had? So what we saw was diabetes mellitus, tuberculosis, asthma, stroke, and heart disease. And for the place of residence and physical activity, we identified the place of residence based on the sampling description for the area, either urban or rural, and in the 4th wave of IFLS. And for physical activity, this was identified from the question during the last 7 days. Did you do any vigorous activities for at least 10 minutes continuously? And for the statistical analysis, we used data 15 for Windows to analyze the data. So we compared the groups of people with chronic diseases and those without diseases using chi-square tests for categorical data, and this was based on a two-tailed RP lower than 0.05 significance. So for the results, so the distribution of place of residence, so it was almost similar for rural and urban. However, subjects in urban area were more compared to subjects living in the rural area. And for the distribution of physical activity, it appeared that not many participated, or not many did rigorous activities during the past 7 days. And our main results, which is the prevalence of chronic diseases by type of residence and physical activity in Indonesia. So, wait a minute. So, urban and rural dwellers had slightly similar numbers, and only 29.62% of individuals were active. Compared to the less active group, active individuals had significantly lower percentages of chronic illnesses like diabetes mellitus, tuberculosis, asthma, stroke, and heart disease. And the chronic diseases that were more apparent in urban areas included diabetes mellitus and possibly also stroke. So the conclusion of our study was that chronic diseases such as diabetes mellitus and possibly stroke were more prevalent in urban areas, whereas active subjects were more likely to experience lower diseases, chronic diseases such as diabetes mellitus, tuberculosis, asthma, stroke, and heart diseases compared to the less active groups. And for our future direction, we would like to do more studies incorporating maybe other potential variables relating to chronic diseases risk, which will help address this public health concern. I think that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation. And if anybody has any questions, they can just put it in the chat box and the speaker will try to answer them. Moving forward. So our last presenter of the day is Gyubei Kan, 9th, 10th grade student in My Paul School, Gyeosin, South Korea. And the topic is implementation of biorhythm graph with trigonometric function using Python. You can also read the abstract. All right, now, Gyubei, you can now just share your screen and you can just start with the presentation.
Before we start our presentation, we excuse you for wearing on a mask during our presentation. Although I do not have a profession, I am very honored and proud to be invited to this conference as a student at My Paul School. Hello, I'm Gyubei Kang and Yewang Jang. I will present first. Today, I would like to present to you our paper, Implementation of Biorhythm Graph with Trigonometric Functions Using Python. Our study is a materialization of biorhythm graph based on trigonometric graph using Python as the subject. Biorhythm claims that there are 3 cycles of physical, emotional, and intellectual in the human body, and that these 3 cycles appear in a certain patterns according to the input of the date of birth, and the ability or activity efficiency differs depending on the combination of these patterns. Physical rhythm is said to be in a cycle of 23 days, emotional rhythm is 28 days, and intellectual rhythm is said to be in a cycle of 33 days. These rhythms are implemented as assigned functions. If we presume t is number of days we lived, physical rhythm is 2 times pi multiply t over 23. Emotional rhythm is 2 times pi multiply t over 28. And intellectual rhythm is 2 times pi multiply t over 33. We implemented the graph based on the concept described above. Library used to implement this in Python include datetime, SymPy, Matplotlib, and NumPy. This is used to retrieve dates, calculate formulas, or draw graphs. The date of birth was entered as input and stored in a variable called birth, and the datetime function was used to specify the year, month, and date format. In addition, the datetime function was used in the variable called today to load the current date, and the number of days we lived was calculated and saved by subtracting the input date of birth from the current date, called in a variable called t. Using NumPy, variable x was assigned to represent the range from the number of days of survival to 30 days later, and physical rhythm, emotional rhythm, and intellectual rhythm were expressed as sign in variables p, e, and I respectively, and stored. Each graph was drawn using Matplotlib, and a legend was displayed in the upper right corner. Through the above process, we succeed in implementing an algorithm to obtain biorhythm. If we input a desired date, we can derive a biorhythm graph corresponding to that date. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. And if anybody has any questions, they can just put it in the chat box and the speaker will try to answer you there. So now, I would just like to thank everyone. With a great pleasure and enthusiasm, I would like to conclude that the conference was a great success. Many people have contributed in a different way to turn this event into a smoothly running conference with very interesting presentations. This conference has resulted in good discussions and networking. I owe my gratitude to all the presenters and patient listeners, to all the coordinators and the whole staff of Eurasia Research for their constant support. I would also like to thank all the universities and institutes who have sponsored our participants and people who have directly or indirectly contributed in the smooth conduct of this conference. You can also check our upcoming conferences. So thank you everyone for joining us, and it was a pleasure to have you all. So I would just like to take a quick feedback from everyone. We'll start with Mohammed sir. So what's your feedback?
It was perfect. Was a nice conference. I enjoyed so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you for joining. Azila ma'am, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to share your feedback?
It is a great conference, an eye-opening sharing session. We learned a lot, and we should do this more often.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We will. Ratia ma'am. Ratia ma'am, am I audible?
Okay, thank you for your suggestion. We will apply your mentioned point with the next research. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes.
Zara ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are. I think it was a very great experience. I would like to thank everyone for their contribution. It was really beneficial and I really enjoyed it. And especially I would like to thank those who took the time to organize it, and it was very efficient and very effective.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. Madam ma'am, would you like to add something? Okay, she might be facing some glitches. Gibai Can, would you like to add?
It was our first joining conference and it was excellent. Thank you.
You're most welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your feedback. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.